Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the FATF issue. Now, is it a financial problem or is it a political threat? Now, that is what seems to be the current problem. Well, whatever Pakistan could have done in the last 3 months, in fact, other than that, even prior to that, Pakistan has been able to do almost 90-95% of what the FATF wanted them to do. But recently, there was a report that out of around 27 points, on which around 26 were totally taken care of, and Pakistan was supposed to be out of the grey list. Then again, Pakistan was given another few months to look after the affairs and to tighten the money laundering issue and to put a check on that. You talk about terror financing, put a check on that also. And then there were certain other areas where Pakistan was told to do more, and we did. And despite that, now recently, yesterday, the FATF has kept Pakistan again in the grey list and asked them to do more. And now the next review is going to be in the first quarter of the next year, that is 2022. What exactly is the problem? Because I will refer to one of the statements of Mr. Jaishankar, the External Affairs Minister of India. He said that the Modi government ensured that Pakistan should be retained on FATF Grey List. So perhaps it is the pressure. Well, when you talk to Mr. Player, the head of the FATF, he says, well, there's nothing of that sort. We just want that Pakistan should, in fact, do more. This is again the same mantra. And there were certain areas which were identified, and we have told the Pakistani authorities and all the financial institutions, whether you talk about the Ministry of Finance, or you talk about the Statistics Board, or you talk about the State Bank of Pakistan, or SECP, that is the regulatory body, and so many other areas, including the Ministry of Interior. And they were all supposed to work together, which they did. And they yielded great results. But yet, instead of encouraging Pakistan and taking them out of the grey list and bringing them back in the white, wasn't done. In fact, we were retained back in the grey list. And the interesting story is that 3 more countries have also been added in the grey list. That includes Turkey, that includes Jordan, and Mali. So just imagine, I mean, there seems to be a proper check on all those countries which are sovereign, and yet they have voiced about the concerns. They have very legitimate concerns, I would say, regarding the Western world. So this is what the problem is. Now, to talk further about this issue, let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. We have with us in our studio on my right is Faheem Sardar Sahab. He's a senior economist. Thank you so much, Faheem Sahab, for your time, sir. And on Skype we have with us Irfan Ghori Sahab, who's a senior journalist and a columnist. Ghori Sahab, pleasure to have you, sir. Thank you so much for your time. And we'll also be talking to Abid Qayyum Soleri Sahab, who is the member of Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. And we'll be taking him on the phone in a little bit. But let me start from you. Faheem Sardar Sahab, whatever this problem was, because we got to know that Pakistan has been put in the grey list. So initially we had no clue. Then we were given a certain number of points and everybody thought, well, you know, this is exactly what we wanted to do. If you remember, 30 points were again talked about during the time when this very unfortunate incident in the Army Public School in Peshawar happened. And then there was this properly, a joint commission was made, and then they said, well, we need to do this, we need to put a check on certain areas, and most of these parts were included. That was for our own benefit. But sir, having said that, I mean, it's been so many meetings, and every time Pakistan has shown a very significant level of progress. Still, sir, you are in the grey list. For God's sake, look at India. Why don't you go and sort of dig and see what's happening regarding IPL and so much more? Nobody talks about that, sir. So to me, it is not a financial problem anymore, sir. It's more of a political problem, rather a diplomatic problem. Let me put it this way. Your take, sir.
Thank you for this opportunity. It was pretty much never a financial issue. It was always a diplomatic issue. At the end of the day, it's about political economy, and we have to bear in mind that when we are talking about any economic aspect, when we talk about, let's say, a petroleum exchange coming up which is going to trade in euros, it becomes a political issue. So we have to understand this, and I've been saying this on multiple forums for many years, that this has to be tackled technically as we have, and this has to, at the same time, simultaneously, with equal aggression that we have devoted to the technicals, it has to be handled diplomatically in an offensive manner. The Asia Pacific Group is part of FATF, and that is currently being dominated by India, not completely, but India has been able to influence certain voters, certain countries, because every country carries a vote. Now, I need to expand on this a little bit. Jaishankar.
So when you say influence, I mean, what exactly is that supposed to mean?
What they do
India is not a superpower. India itself, but yes, it's a huge market.
That's the whole point. You see, the countries that are primarily voting in favor of, let's say, something that India wants, and it's not just India, there are other countries as well. India being one of the spearheads. India is a market for many countries, and you have to look at the UN Security Council makeup. How many of those countries trade with India, and to what extent? You have to look at their exports, and if you look at India's imports, the answer becomes it's literally 1 + 1. So what we had to do was, to be fair, we had to build up our technicals. We had to improve our technical situation. We had to improve our outreach, and perhaps at some point we did take it very lightly in the beginning. But having said that, Pakistan accelerated at an exponential level. The development, the technical cleansing, the categorization of funds, where they're coming from, where they're going.
So much of reforms, I would say.
Currently, I think they were like we were at 81 by 84. We had done 81 things that needed to be done. Now we've done more, but FATF says we have to do more. Now I'll be the devil's advocate for just a minute. The FATF wants to be sure that the system is in place, but the FATF also wants actions being taken against certain who they classify as terrorists. So I will not get into that, but having said that, we need to be very clear. There are many countries in the white list. Pakistan has said this repeatedly. They should be in the grey list. Now, when it comes to the quote that you very rightly pointed out of Jaishankar, he was addressing a BJP gathering.
Yes.
And this was on the 18th of July. And if I remember his words verbatim, where we have used our economic leverage to keep Pakistan in the grey list. By the way, to be fair, not every country is happy with India. Even the so-called friends of India are not happy with India, because India is creating a lot of embarrassment for them. But at the end of the day, we have to accelerate our diplomatic outreach, our aggression, because it's about votes. You go up to countries and you say, this is what we've done, this is what's happening on the ground, we would like to open our economic doors for you, we would like to give you economic benefit, please tell us how you can support us. And this is not to be taken lightly. This is not to be taken lightly, because technicals are very important, but at the end of the day, a diplomatic outreach is also very important.
I mean, diplomatic outreach, I mean, we'll definitely talk about that, what exactly needs to be done, because as far as the numbers are concerned, we have presented them with all the details. And I mean, it's just like an exam that, you end up getting 90-95% marks, yet you're not allowed to pass the examination. This is how it seems to be. But now, I'll also engage our very dear friend, Wari Saab. Wari Saab, now, I'm sure you must have read, heard, written about it, and we've done so many shows regarding this particular problem of FATF. Now, so there was a report that one of the people who was involved in the coup against Tayyip Erdogan, and he was somebody from the civil society, and he was arrested in 2016-17 and was put in the jail. Now, countries like USA, Canada, Norway, Denmark, France, Germany, Finland, New Zealand, and around 10 countries, Netherlands, they've all voiced, and the answer from Mr. Tayyip Erdogan was that, well, I can definitely send their ambassadors back. And these are the main top countries, European countries in the Western world you're talking about. So eventually, what happened was that Turkey is in the grey list, so the case is with Jordan and Mali. Now, the point is, sir, that Pakistan is also in the grey list. And for quite some time now, whatever we could have done, we have done, yet there is no progress. And according to our friend Mr. Faheem Sardar, he says that this is no more a financial issue or a financial problem. It's more about the fight that we have to, in fact, win as far as diplomacy is concerned. The diplomatic front needs to be really versatile now. And at the same time, it's more of a political issue too. This is what I've heard from a lot of political figures in Pakistan as well. Now, according to your own research and the kind of information you have to share with us, what seems to be the real problem now? Because Mr. Player on one hand says that Pakistan has really done well and they have shown a significant improvement in all the tasks that were assigned to them, yet we are in the grey list. Why?
Yeah, Faisal, thank you very much. I think when you mentioned about initially when in June 2018 when we were put in the grey list, at that time there were 27 points. And out of those 27 points, we have implemented. They had been calling, the action points. We implemented 26, and the one that on which the progress was remaining, that is regarding the investigation and prosecution of the persons and entities that have been, declared terrorist organizations or groups by the UN. That was, at that time, and then the action points were revised. We were given some more tasks. But interestingly, I tell you, this time, which is not debated in Pakistan, that much. Now, they have been saying that we need to provide them evidence that we are actively seeking to enhance the impact of sanctions beyond the jurisdiction by nominating additional individuals and entities for to be designated by the UN as well. That means now they are demanding that other than the ones they have been asking us, and who are those people? I tell you, our fellow here, he didn't mention, but those are like Afghan Taliban, the Haqqani Network, JUD, Jaish-e-Mohammed, then it is Fly Insani. There are 8, 9 Al-Qaeda, ISIS. The thing is that these demands are now increasing. They are asking us that other than these, the ones they have been pressurizing us, we need to identify more groups and more individuals that need to be, put on the UN terrorist list. That means there is no stop to that. There won't be, if you do this, then there will be. So it is very clear when we say that there are, of course, there were some, flaws in our system, but the way we have been acting, the way, irrespective of, who is in the government, who is not in the government, but I think it was consensus in Pakistan that this is the right time that we take some certain steps that need to, so that we can be, the international, whatever the international standards are in the financial sectors, we implement that, because we are very well aware the implications of, being in the grey list, and God forbid, which was earlier feared that we might go into blacklist. But this time the good thing was when one of a journalist, I think he was of Indian background, when he asked about Pakistan's going to the blacklist, the president, who is, this time the presidency is with the Germany, and he said that it was not even discussed. But the thing is that the demands are increasing, which qualifies the point that more and more, the demands are coming, and it has political reasons for that.
So who are giving these demands? Is it the FATF or is it India? Because when you talk about Afghan Taliban, you talked about Jamaat al-Dawa, Jaish-e-Mohammed, or Fly Insaniyat Foundation.
Yes.
These are all those groups. Perhaps they are doing a great job as far as the social service is concerned. So you talk about earthquakes, you talk about floods. These are the people, these are the organizations which are actually working along with all the other aiding agencies. Number point is, sir, that these are the adversaries of India. Perhaps the issue is related to Kashmir. Is it the problem, sir? Or is it the general, sort of offering by Pakistan that we can do this much, but what else should we do now?
Faisal, the thing is that when it comes to, Jamaat al-Dawa or Jaish-e-Muhammad, we have tried in our courts, unless, and we have tried our best that if we can prove, whatever the allegations against them, but when you cannot prove them, I mean, it's very difficult for you to continue prosecuting them just on the basis of allegations. The other very significant thing is that when it comes to Haqqani Network or Afghan Taliban, they are the rulers in Afghanistan now. The world at the same time is talking to them. Not now, but we know that in Doha, the talks that have been taking place, and now, now they are rulers of a country. So it is almost impossible for us, and that we impose sanctions on them or whatever the demands are. So it is something which is beyond our capacity. And then the next point which I have raised this time, they have mentioned, is that we need to identify more groups and individuals, which is a never-ending task. And it is very clearly seems that it is, the politically motivated. It's not only India, I think that other Western countries as well, they are putting pressure, and we know, I mean, they have certain other pressures they have been putting on us regarding Afghanistan, their concerns in Afghanistan. This also includes the Americans' concerns as well. So this is all, this body has been used for, though the purpose of this body, for which it was formed, as many other organizations, it was a very, a good task. But at the end, the way it is used, and now you see, I mean, the other countries, they are on the grey list. They might not, they are the, smaller countries. But now, amongst the prominent countries, Pakistan and Turkey are not, the countries which are insignificant on the world stage. So these are the countries. If you are putting them, and we know that, as you mentioned yourself, that there were differences between Erdogan and the West, and the results we are seeing is that now Turkey is also, and interestingly, Turkey is also member of that, body. That's also an interesting fact, that it is on the grey list, but many other countries, which, if you go into details, and the allegations that on the basis of which Turkey are on the grey list now, there would be many other countries qualifying for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is something which isn't fair. Unfortunately, this is not on merit. Now, Faheem Sardar, another important part. I mean, ever since we heard this statement from the Prime Minister, absolutely not. Do you think this is the fallout factor of that, number one? And secondly, sir, I mean, this is one of the fallout factors, I would say. Because whenever the Americans want you to be out of it, they can get it done like this. So, since we are not providing them the bases or the airspace for that matter, we did help them as far as the exit is concerned. But now, Pakistan has been made a scapegoat because of the Afghan issue and the American defeat there, I would say. And this is the price which Pakistan is paying. Is that a correct statement, sir?
I think we have to take stock of the world, global geopolitical and the political economic situation, and it's been tectonic. What's happened in Afghanistan with NATO leaving, ISAF leaving, and now the Afghan Taliban are in control, and they're trying to bring the country together. To be honest, I mean, they're not trying to do anything other than that. Having said that, the political economy, the geopolitics, the politics of a situation never go away. They might change a little bit. Now, of course, we did not create the FATF. When we became part of the FATF, had we been one of the rule makers, perhaps we would have made some rules for ourselves as well. Now, FATF seems to be working just fine for many countries, but it's not working fine for us, because of certain technical, partially, but more so diplomatic reasons. Those diplomatic reasons are linked to politics. As you said about fallout, yes, of course, there must be some fallout. I mean, at the end of the day, there has been a tectonic shift in the region.
Correct.
But we have to bear one thing in mind, that this is not something new. This has been going on for a long time. And trying to be slightly neutral or fair, FATF did not put Pakistan on the blacklist. Even when we just started out, they gave us time, they kept giving us time. India kept pressurizing. If you read their narrative, India considers themselves to be a failure because they're like, we couldn't get Pakistan into the blacklist. Only Iran is in the blacklist right now.
And North Korea is not?
North Korea is outside the jurisdiction of FATF. You become you come into this voluntarily. You do not just, it cannot be imposed.
So another question, sir, what if Pakistan eventually gets in the white list and we sort of we resign from this organization? Can we do that?
I think it's a very bold move, very bold, very audacious move. I'll use that word. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. I was in a discussion where people were saying that, IMF is saying this, IMF is saying that. I was like, look, Thailand took a facility, and the moment they got the facility, they said, we can't do it. We can't fulfill your requirements. We need more time. Change the terms. So one has to properly negotiate oneself. And I would say, let's stay in the FATF. Let's make the best of it. Let's start to dominate.
And do what?
And use it as a forum. Use it as a platform, because there are many things that we are not looking at right now.
For example?
For example, FATF, Pakistan has done approximately higher than the average FATF member in the white list. We're still in the grey list. That means technically we have now understood the system. So why not make use of the system now? Why not become part of it and start using it in another capacity? You start pointing out things that need to be pointed out in other countries. What I'm saying right now is Pakistan is in the grey list. FATF has said they want more evidence. Fine, let's give them more evidence where we can. Where we cannot, we'll have to negotiate. But at the end of the day, we have to be very clear what our direction is. As you use the word fallout, everything is political economic. Everything. Whether it's business, whether it's oil, whether it's trade, whether it is finance. So we have to balance things out in our own interest. We cannot keep following a system. If you see what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we've understood the system, let's
capitalize on that.
Exactly. Let's capitalize on it, because now we understand the system. Okay, this is what it is. We are now very familiar with APG, with FATF, with the TF financing, subclause 6, all those points. So let's use the system. We've come a long way in a very short span. To be honest, FATF didn't put us on the blacklist.
As a neutral observer, when I say that Pakistan has done quite a bit, actually, as you mentioned, more than what was required.
Yep.
Now, in certain given circumstances, let's suppose first quarter of the next year, again, I mean, when you talk about the money laundering action plan, sir, 4 out of 7 items were addressed, stated by Hamad Azhar Saab. And in general, terror financing action plan, which is the major one, 26 out of 27 items completed, again stated by Hamad Azhar Saab. He said some countries did not agree with majority. Again, your point is proven here that there was some sort of a pressure. But sir, having said that, how long the Indians can continue doing this, sir? Exerting pressure on the other members to keep Pakistan in the grey list, or perhaps push us into the black? We cannot, because we have really complied really well. Sir, after 3 months, let's say Pakistan has done all that is required and 5 points are added again. Is that a possibility or a probability, sir?
Of course.
Now we need to do this. How long can they linger on, and how many times, if you are not, retained back, or perhaps if you're not sent back in the white list, what is the probability that, let's suppose 6 times you appear and 6 times you are unable to clear, and now there is a law that after 6 times you have to be in the blacklist or something of that sort? Can that happen?
No. The last thing will not happen, because that would basically throw the whole FATF system into disarray. There are limits to even a conspiracy. There are limits to it. After that, it starts to turn into something else. Within that system, as I have stressed, that we should start using the system, as we must. It's an international system. Everyone has to agree to it. If certain parameters are breached, the whole system can break. The whole system then can become, the World Bank right now, I'll give you an example, has removed the ease of doing business analysis from its system, because there were countries approaching managers, telling them, please increase our rankings, so they had to eventually dismantle the whole system. This is one example. I mean, this happened like a few months ago. So what's happening right now is, if there is pressure on certain countries to vote it in a particular way, so I think through effective diplomacy, we can not only highlight our technical expertise, but one thing which I'm going to stress, underline, bold, and repeat, is to bring our economy forward, to bring our economic diplomacy forward, and to go and talk to those countries that did not vote for us. What do you want? What can we do for you? Welcome to Pakistan.
Bilateral engagement.
Engagement, that's what India is doing. It's going to every single country. Every country that's not voting for us, a big country, they're basically going to other countries individually. Perhaps we should be doing that a little bit.
Diplomatic pressure you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we overstate some of our capacities, but in most cases we understate our capacity. The Pakistan government has done a superb job to come this far. There is a reason that Indian journalist...
So if you show these documents to any neutral observer, they would say that Pakistan has done more than what was required, and still the problem prevails. Now coming to you, Irfan Qori Saab, don't you think instead of working on the numbers, on our efficiency regarding this FATF challenge, or the kind of approach Pakistan has adopted, the kind of results that Pakistan has produced, keep that aside. It seems the problem is where the number game comes in, when people support you or people do not support you. Don't you think high time that our foreign office should get engaged instead of the Ministry of Finance or other related departments that are more about, again, as I mentioned, about the number game? That is going to be the more appropriate way forward. Pakistan's diplomacy at the UN, or with the countries which are so-called the friends of Pakistan, muster support from the Russians, the Chinese, and then move forward. Because when you look at it, I mean, sometimes we get to know only 3 members supported Pakistan, including Turkey and perhaps China and one more. And then why not to get the right number? Let's identify those 15 odd countries, gear up, have a proper plan, and then talk and negotiate.
Yes, Faisal, I totally agree. I mean, this is a fact that when we were put in the grey list, of course there were some deficiencies, and we also wanted, that it was needed that, in our...
Well, that was a part of your national action plan also, if you remember.
Yes. But now the way the things have been turning out, I mean, over the years, as we mentioned earlier, that there are in certain, when it comes to certain demands, we have certain limitations, like, when it comes to the organizations that have been designated by the UN as terrorist organizations by, due to the, Indian pressure, the American interest or whatever. The thing is that we have to, make the world understand that if we take action against any individual or any organization, there should be some legal basis for that. And when we try to find out those legal basis, like when it comes to, if you recall the 2008 Mumbai attacks, still we have been asking Indians to provide us more evidence. They are not ready to give those to us. Similarly, when the world is also now talking with the Afghan Taliban and Haqqani network, I mean, we know that the Interior Minister, he is the key member of the Haqqani network in Afghanistan. So, I mean, we have certain limits, and we have to make the world realize that. For that, the best way is through diplomacy, and with a very active diplomacy. What happens is that usually we provide our briefs when it comes to the meetings. I think they meet thrice a year. So we give them those briefs and we give them explanations. But beyond that, if there is something going on that might have been behind the scene, but we have not seen it, that our diplomats, our foreign office, our embassies there, they have been actively trying to convince those countries that matter in these this FATF body. So we need to engage them. We need to make them understand that we have these limitations. Number one. Number two, the way Pakistan has implemented, like this time we have implemented some of the tasks that we were supposed to complete by next year. We completed them even before their deadline. So these are the examples that we need to highlight, and that is the only way that the world can understand our position, and then we should make them realize that Pakistan, due to our economic situation, we need to be out of this grey list so that we can attract more investment that is needed for our country's growth. And it is a fact that when it comes to when you are on a grey list, your foreign investment, it declines. There has been it is IMF study that any country which is on the grey list, their the capital inflow, it decreases by 7.6% of their GDP, which is a huge number in our case. So we need to make the world understand that these are the implications that we have been facing, and these implications we are facing despite we have been trying our best to implement whatever we can, and now it is.
So also, what I have understood, I was just trying to calculate that if a country like Pakistan, let's suppose, the kind of GDP we have and the economy overall, if that country is in grey list, let's suppose for 2 years, all right, sir, instead of being in the white list, when you talk about the loss as far as the economic growth is concerned, sir, we there are different financial institutions. IMF says around 3.4. Another institution would say 4.2. Let's say Pakistan says 3.8. Let's say 4% growth is what we can achieve, or perhaps what is the forecast. If a country like Pakistan is in grey list, then what sort of impact it can have if it wasn't?
Of course, we would have been in a better position to negotiate with the international lender, be it the IMF, be it the World Bank. This is one aspect. The other thing is that we could have attracted more investment and foreign investment which is very much needed, and that would have ultimately added to our growth rate and overall economy.
All right, thanks up. Because as we speak, the IMF negotiations are going on. The finance minister is there, and there seems to be some sort of an issue there as well, because there is definitely, but we do not know what seems to be the problem. Obviously, I won't say that the IMF is there to twist your arm, but at least they can give you an impression that what you are supposed to do, what you don't need to do, what you're supposed to do. In that particular condition, let's suppose yesterday if Pakistan was put back in the white list, do you think it would have lubricated the whole process of IMF negotiations, sir? And it could have been done in a better way?
Certainly, and I think it could have been done in vice versa as well. Had the IMF already said yes, that might have influenced FATF as well. So it's like
it was related in one way or the other.
They're completely
economic.
They're completely related, or like two sides of the same coin, if I dare say. The bottom line is that there is an international regime that the world has agreed to. If there was a time we were not up to mark, we did let things slip. That was a different situation. Now we have learned the system. The government has done a superb job. I'm going to say this very bluntly. No country has done what we have done in such a short span of time. Let's give ourselves some credit. Let's do what the FATF says. Let's go as far as we can go. And who knows? We might just come out, with unscathed. We might be in the white list perhaps in the next year, early next year. What I'm saying is, let's play the game. Let's play the game more intelligently, which we are, by the way. Which we are. Had the same pressure been applied on India, or some other large country, I can assure you, I mean, from the neutral narrative that we try to build, that we try to, the neutrality that we need to understand what's happening in another country, when we apply that, we see that they've got some major issues. And when the world is going to start looking at them with a microscope, it's going to be a very different discussion. They will not be able to do it as fast as we did. Right now, the FATF wants, let's try to summarize it, let's try to take a neutral view of it. The FATF is saying you've done a good job. The Indians tried to ask, when will Pakistan be placed on the blacklist? And they said that was not even discussed. I think that's a huge achievement. Yeah, and if you read the Indian narrative, because I'm sorry this discussion is becoming Indian-centric, because it is actually an issue. Yeah, and actually they're the ones who brought this topic up, not us. And they're the ones who keep bringing it up in meetings. So the next step is, when FATF asks us for something, let's just give it to them. Let's do what we can do to the best of our abilities, and what we cannot do, what is not logical, what's not real, we have to convince them. And the moment we get out of the white list, I suggest, I would feel, I hope we start playing the system as well as we can, because
You're optimistic about it?
It's going to take a while. It's not going to be that easy, because this is a geopolitical thing. This is a political, economic, geopolitical, whichever.
The maneuvers from the Foreign Office, or the kind of foreign policy that's going on, that is more important rather than looking at the financial transactions and all.
Now, yes. Why? Because the technicals have been built up. The infrastructure is there. We go back 2 years, we did not have the infrastructure. In 2019 June, let's be fair, we did not have this. We have now got this whole track record. We've got these feathers in our cap that we said we've done all this. So now even the FATF is constrained to say that, no, you've done a pretty good job. Yeah, the blacklist, it's out of the question. Yeah, take care of these things. We have to build up our momentum. The technicals are there. The Foreign Office is now gearing up. I'm sure the Foreign Office already has, but we just need to intensify it. We need to make
one quick comment before I go to our friend Wali Sahab. So, for example, if at some stage, rather, I think Pakistan is already feeling that. Pakistan feels that this is totally unfair, unethical. There are no values, no norms. There are no ethics in this. And, we want to take this case in the International Court of Justice, for example. Can we do that? If things are not heard on merit or not done on merit in FATF or their Asia-Pacific group?
It could be. I mean, I honestly, the world is the limit. So you exercise the world. That's what I say. That's one thing. But let's wait. Let's try to stay in the system. Let's play by those rules. And to be honest, I mean, there was a time we were really behind par, below par.
I think now we've done extremely good. Now we're in a position.
I have said we've done a superb job. I'm not.
Perhaps one of the best, sir.
Easily. I mean, one gets, one is left speechless.
But what we've done of financial disorder, I would say, sir.
Yeah.
That was the center where money would go, and now they're out of the Grey List.
They're out, and Mauritius was one of those countries where India was receiving some of the most.
There are a lot of Indians there, sir.
Yeah. Some of the grey funds were coming from Mauritius, from offices that were sealed. So I mean, there's a lot. The rabbit hole is very deep. But what we take away from this discussion is, what we take away from what's happened right now is, we have the technical expertise now. Let's build on it. They want to see that you have strengthened the system, which is producing results. If the system produces a result,
primarily about the reforms also, sir.
Yeah,
but so you've done or you could have done. Simple as that. Now coming to you, sir, as I earlier mentioned, when you talk about countries with some ethics, values, and they have some social norms, the interesting part now seems to be that no matter what you do, these ethics, values, these are just the words. They don't have any weightage looking at the current geopolitics or the geoeconomics, let me put it this way. And the kind of approach which we have adopted earlier was great because Pakistan has done a lot, and that wasn't only for the sake of FATF. I think Pakistan really needed that, and we have done a brilliant job. And now, capitalizing on that particular front, sir, the way forward, yes, we have to look after the affairs that have been discussed. We have to eliminate all our weaknesses. We have to capitalize on our strengths. But having said that, sir, the most important factor is about the Foreign Office now. They need to have a special team visiting from one place to another, trying to understand about the concerns of those countries, that they must be having some sort of a concern that under these conditions, Pakistan should be kept in the grey list. So we can always negotiate and ask them that what do you want us to do? Let's go as far as the bilateral relationship is concerned and then sort the problem out.
Yes, Faisal, that is right, and that is the right way. When it comes to legal or regulatory or operational measures, we have tried our best, and we will keep on trying, and we should keep on trying. But when it comes to some things which are logically not possible, we have to negotiate on that. And then at the same time, I think we need to highlight that the flaws and the deficiencies that the countries that have been lobbying against us, they have, and still they are on the white list. Rather, they have been doing the propaganda and doing the campaigns against us. So we, at the same time, one is that we have to make the world understand, then we have to be a bit aggressive on that front as well. But when it comes to, the finance ministry's role or the FBR's role, that should continue, and in fact, clout of any country, we understand that is its economic strength these days. So that is, really important that at the economic front, and we should continue all our efforts. Then, the regulatory front, the legal front, we should continue. But at the same time, when it comes to certain, illogical demands, then we should make the world clear, and we should try to convince the international community, and especially the countries that matter here. And then, Faisal, I'll tell you, there are some things that are perception based, and we should admit that, and we should take very serious look into that, like what is happening today in Islamabad and Lahore. These are the things that give the world a bad image. The same thing that had happened, few months back. After every few, months, something like that happens, and whatever we have done, to improve our image, that goes, we go back to the same. So on our domestic front, we need to look on these things as well.
All right, sir. Thank you so much, Ghori Saab, for your presence, and thank you so much, Faheem Saab, for your presence as well in our show. So that's all we have for this week. I'll see you inshallah on Monday. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Have a great weekend. Khuda Hafiz.